Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I am so delighted to have my good writing buddy, Janine Rosche, here with me to talk about her book. So Janine, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, my name is Janine, and I live in Northwest Ohio. I do not write about Northwest Ohio, which is one of the reasons why we are talking about destination romance. I have just released my first debut novel back in May, and then followed that up with another couple just to finish off the series. My latest just came out in January. So, and like Cara, I'm a college instructor as well. So we're always talking about just how crazy our lives are trying to write and teach at the same time.
Well, and it was fun because as we were hopping on here, Janine was like, I was just running my kids to soccer and all this. And I think our lives are so similar in that respect. And hello, everyone who is joining us. It's so fun to see you all popping in and saying hi. So Stacy and Sonetta and Marcy and everybody, so much fun. Thanks for joining us. But I'll never forget the first time that we really connected, Janine, because it was at ACFW and it was in Dallas or Grapevine. And I remember you coming up to me and going, hey, can we go for a walk? And I was like, I love this. Here's someone who speaks my language of let's do something while we're getting to know each other. And as they say, the rest is history. So
yeah. Well, you were so sweet. You were helping all the first time attendees at the conference and all these new writers, and we had no idea what we were doing. And you were so sweet to help us and walk us through that process. And if it weren't for you, I would have quit writing that weekend. So you have just always been so encouraging.
I am so glad because that was such a fun thing for me, just to get to have that time to get to know you, because ACFW is always a rush for me. I mean, there's all these different ways I'm getting pulled as a board member, and often I'm presenting and I have all the first timers, which I love doing. But I would say there's a good reason that you shouldn't have stopped writing. I mean, to think you've had 3 of these beautiful books. The covers are just gorgeous. And they've come out in really just kind of this rush. If you think 3 books since May, that's not even 9 months. So how have you done it? How have you juggled all that?
It has been, I'm not very good at living a balanced life. I'm either doing all one thing or all another. So my poor children, my poor house, my poor dogs, they have been ignored quite a bit. My husband's standing right there in case there's tech trouble. He's been a little ignored as well. But it's worth it. It's fun. So even when I'm at my most stressed when it comes to writing, it's still so much fun. And I hope I can always say that to at least a small extent. Because it really is. I mean, what a blessing to be able to write what we write. And, it's just, it comes so natural I've always been imagining love stories anyway. And now I actually, get paid for it. And now people don't think I'm crazy when I share about the love stories. When I was in high school and I used to tell people all these things I imagined, they did not think it was very, very cute. In fact, people got a little scared when I would tell them all the things I had imagined. So it's great now.
So funny. Well, because I think it's one of those, that both of us are a really interesting mix, because as college professors, we've got these advanced degrees. We've operated a lot in the left brain space, but it's like the writing allows the right brain to come out and play. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be able to do what I've done without a really supportive husband. And so I love that your husband is right there, kind of like your tech support, because I mean, it really is the only way you can kind of juggle what we're juggling is when you have those men who are just so supportive and like, okay, how can we help you make this happen and be supportive of that. Oh, and David joined in from Australia. So
hey, David.
And Linda's been like, it's so fun to fall in love with your characters and cry with them and laugh with them as you tell their story. And you write the kind of books that's going to be very real. So, but first you have to just talk about how amazing your husband is, because that's the best romance.
Right. He would say he is not a romantic, but we're coming up on 19 years. And
Congratulations.
I've learned that romance at year 19 or year 20 is very different than
Yeah.
the romance that we tend to write about, because we write about when they're really first getting to know each other. And, romance to me now is when my husband helps my daughter with her homework or her piano lessons, or gives my son a haircut like he was just doing. That is way more attractive at this stage in life than the
Absolutely.
swoony things we write about in our books. So,
Well, and, I've COVID has made higher education, just like it's made every level of education, really challenging. I'm teaching my first synchronous online class. I'm teaching from 4:30 to 5:30 every night right now, because that's how we can get the most students in the classroom. And that's the goal at Purdue. But what that means is, just like you've been saying, Eric and I just celebrated 25 years. And the things that really do make me feel loved and seen and supported are when he's like, don't worry about supper. We'll have something when you get home. As I'm
right.
kind of scrambling to go, okay, I'm not organized enough to have the crock pot done or anything ready, but I'll figure something out. And he's just like, no, it's already taken care of. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And
Yeah.
yet when we're writing these novels, we're writing about that early stage of romance most of the time. So, oh, and Rachel's here. And
it,
Marcy, thank you. My Mickey Mouse mug is quite fun.
It's
But can
funny that
you
you
tell
bring
us?
up the dinner thing, because my
Yeah.
version of romance is I just ate like Taco Bell right before this meeting started, and my husband didn't give me like judgy eyes, because
Yes.
I was eating Taco Bell at 41 years old. It's like, you know what? Just don't look at me. I'm sure this is not the most attractive I've ever been. Just look away.
Yeah.
And that's romance.
It is, and it's real life. And I think
Yes.
sometimes that's one of the challenges with when we write romance, is how do we not set up unrealistic expectations of what it looks like later, which is honestly one of the things I loved about with Flight Risk. The heroine was actually 40. The hero was 40, because this was kind of like a second chance at love story. And what looked romantic to her is different than when you're a 28-year-old and you're looking for that first guy. So Rachel's like, Taco Bell, yes. So, so tell us more about your books, because your books are definitely that swoony romance, but they have a lot more to them. So how did you come up with this idea and the setup, and what kind of got you started with this particular series, which this one's the one that just released, correct?
Yes, Glory Falls just released in January. Wildflower Road was in October, and then my debut, This Wandering Heart, was in May. And they are all part of the Madison River Romance series. And it really all got started when I first went out to Montana with my family back when I was 20 years old, and fell in love with the Madison River region of Montana. And the Madison River flows into Yellowstone. So if you've been to Yellowstone, you've seen the Madison River. This is where it crosses the state line. And it's in this amazing canyon. And when you go there's such history there. And it's one of the things I love about writing destination romances, is there really is a history there that it creates a unique town atmosphere because of what they had gone through. And in this particular town, because it's set in West Yellowstone, Montana, and there was a massive earthquake that happened back in 1959, and it buried, I think, more than 24 campers under, like, pretty much half a mountain slid down into the Madison River Canyon and blocked the Madison River. And it was a horrible, horrible tragedy. But the entire town came together, and you can still see the evidence of that historic event. It created a new lake, and you can still see the dead skeleton trees sticking up in the middle of the lake. I mean, and it has such a tragic feel to it. And I've always wondered, like, that question that I don't know that many of us have ever found the answer to, is why is that allowed? If we believe in this God who can do everything, and everything has to go through his hands. How can something like that be allowed? And how can the tragedy that we go through in our personal lives be allowed? And then how can we still believe that he loves us when those things happen? And all of that came around at a time when I had lost several people in my family, and I was grieving. And so you'll see that my characters were all grieving some kind of loss in their lives. And it really helped me to cope with the questions that I've been asking myself. And so that's kind of how it came around. And then as far as the romances go, like I've said, well, the romance is easy to come up with.
That you hit on something really important, that I know we've got some writers on here and a lot of readers, and some of them are experiencing you for the first time, which I absolutely love. So Beverly, you will really enjoy Janine's books. But there's something about the writing process that God uses in our lives, and it often can be, we may not even know it. We may not even expect it going into it, but then quickly come to realize, wow, God's working something out in me as I'm working it out with my characters. And it's been really amazing, 35 books in, how many of them, even the ones I'm like, oh, this is just a piece of fluff, there's nothing to it. And I'm like, no, actually, there's still this heart to it. And so I love that, you've got, it's not just this light, fluffy romance, but there are some serious issues that your characters are dealing with that may be coming out of your experience, but it's real life. And it shows how God is just woven into everything. And that's, I think, something that makes Christian fiction so redemptive and so hope-filled, and is often missing in other books.
Yes.
So,
oh, and I saw that Marcy has been to West Yellowstone.
yes,
So
I was gonna say that.
Marcy, you have to tell me where you went. Did you stay in the town? Did you go visit anything? I would love to chat. I love talking with people about that region of the country. So please let me know.
Absolutely. And yes, Linda, Janine's books are Christian. What's really fun about them is they're published by Berkeley, which, you can find these in Walmart. I think I got one in Walmart and one in Target. So, they're available everywhere. You can get them online as well. But Berkeley, which is not traditionally a Christian publisher by any stretch, has picked up Janine and is actually trying to grow in that space, which I love. That means there's this recognition. There's all of us readers. And I actually wrote a blog post about this, how I've run across several books lately where I just couldn't listen to them, or I'm like, maybe I could read them if they were in paper, where I can skip chapters that have scenes that are objectionable to me. But I love having writers where I just know, okay, I'm going to be challenged, it's going to be a good story, but I don't have to worry about the content that might get slipped in, where I'm just like, really? That's not part of that time period, or no, that's not necessary. It doesn't move the story forward. And so I love that. Love that. You're dealing with real stuff, and yet it's still a vacation in a book. It's still, I haven't been to Yellowstone yet, and books like yours make me really, really want to get there. So
you have to go. Everybody should go at least once in their life. And you have to go soon, because it's getting so overwhelmed with tourists that it's like going into the actual park is not as much fun as it used to be. So make sure you go before it goes really crazy. So
that's interesting.
And it's funny that, because I feel like when I read your books, I feel like I'm on vacation. First of all, I feel like there's a history lesson in it. And then just the whole atmosphere of Washington, D.C. is just amazing. And I love, there is a certain feel that comes with Washington, D.C., where there's this mystery, there's history to it, there's passion. And then at the same time, like, you have some major court cases that have come out of the DC area. And, I love your ripped from the headlines feel of these latest couple books. It's great. And it takes me back to when I used to live in Washington, DC and Northern Virginia, and going and seeing those sites. It's great.
Well, and I think that that's one of the things that we both do. And Rachel McDaniel and I were talking about that last week with her historicals, and how that the setting really should become a character. Oh, and Linda, thank you. Because Linda says, if I recommend a book and an author, it's good. So you all know that Janine's books must be amazing because I'm sharing her with you. But, I think with a book, there's something that happens whether it's like Lethal Intent or one of yours, where the setting is so integral that you can't pick it up and move it somewhere else without changing the feel and the character and the vibe of the book. And that was something that Colleen Coble, one of my writing mentors, really impressed on me early. And I don't know if it's when we were brainstorming something, but just how she really tries to make every place a book is set, that it has to be set there. The book would be different if it was picked up and moved somewhere else. And so you've definitely accomplished that with these Yellowstone books, because it really does feel like you said, that history, that avalanche, the mountain sliding down, that's something that only happened there. And so without that, it would have to be a very different sense of grieving, a different sense of place and purpose. Right. So Marcy wants to know how you research the places to set your books, as well as how much you fictionalize versus staying true to the location.
Well, for me, the research it wasn't as much research as it was taking repeated trips out to Montana. That my husband loves when I say, hey, I'm going to take a 2-week trip out west with the kids. And most of the time I'll bring the kids with me because they love traveling as well. They love road trips. I love road trips. So yeah, we will get in the car and just head out there. He's gone with me a few times, although he's not a huge Yellowstone fan, but mostly because I make him do a lot of the driving. So I don't really do a lot of the research. I want to go and experience it. In This Wandering Heart, I had a couple locations that I had never visited. Now that was stressful because I was so afraid of getting something wrong. Like visiting or reading about the Badlands versus visiting the Badlands, I don't know that it's really the same thing. And so if you read This Wandering Heart and I didn't do a good job of describing the Badlands, I'm sorry. I'm hoping to get there this summer. So now my next series is set in the mountains of Colorado, and I used to live in Denver. So that will be a little easier for me. So again, hopefully I won't have to do as much research. And as far as what I fictionalize, when I set it at a real town, West Yellowstone, I couldn't fictionalize a lot. I had to really, at one point I was studying the river depth of the Madison River on a certain stretch of highway to figure out how deep it would be if a car were to go sliding into the river, because I didn't want a fisherman to go, there's no chance that a car could sink in that, in that part of the river or whatever. So the
thing is, readers will let you know. They will totally let you know. You could have gotten everything else right. And so it's funny, I actually had pulled this one because this is my Mackinac Island book, and I'd been there and I went, oh, I should set a book here. And then we went back, and then I was still on Google Earth and looking at photos and, looking at the map over and over again, because Mackinac Island is a very real location, and people who go there love it. So don't mess with it. And so it is really nerve-wracking when you're dealing with a real place that has a very specific feel and people who just adore it. So Linda wants to know, does your husband give you input on the male POV? So on the hero?
Yes, I have asked him quite a bit about that. Like, how would he say this? My last hero that I wrote, Thomas, is probably more like my husband than any of the other heroes that I've written. And so it was funny, like there would be times where my heroine was very much like me in a lot of ways, where she would say something to him and he would just give her a blank stare. And I could picture my husband giving that same blank stare. And you're just thinking, what is going on behind those eyes? What is he thinking about the thing I just said? So yeah, he gives me a lot. When I ask him, he doesn't say like, oh, I could write this better than you. He would never say something like that. But if I ask him for feedback, he'll definitely help me. So
and I love that, because Eric didn't read the first bunch of my books, but he's really done a nice job reading through like the hidden justice books. And that's meant a lot to me. But there are times when I'll be writing, I'll be like, what do you call it when you pull your sleeve out from under your jacket? And he's like, oh, shooting your cuss. I'm like, really? Shooting your cuss. And then my editor would be like, what is that? I'm like, oh, my husband told me that's what it's called when a guy does that. And I'm like, so that's what we're going to call it. That's what we're going with. So
my poor husband, even last night, I said, what's that word when you do this? And he'll give me 15 different words for that. And I'm like, no, never mind.
yeah,
I'll figure it out myself. Like it has to be the perfect word. And yeah. But he's really helpful.
Perfect one. That's so funny. So
Yeah.
is there a book that you've read that you're like, man, because we're still stuck. Most of us aren't able to travel. The travel bug is hitting. I am so ready. My husband was asking today, what do you want for Valentine's Day? And I'm like, I don't want anything, because as soon as we can travel, we are going and we are doing something, because that'll be anniversary, birthday, Valentine's, all the things.
Yes.
Is there a book that you've read lately that you didn't write that felt like that vacation where you're like, okay, I got transported and it was great?
Yeah. Okay. So you had her on last week, but Rachel McDaniel writes the past two books that she's written have been set in Pittsburgh, which, you know, I feel I've been to Pittsburgh a few times, and I live in Toledo, Ohio. And, you know, when we live in the Rust Belt, it's, you know, there's not a lot of romances that are set nowadays in the Rust Belt. But back in the 1920s and 30s, like we were the place to be. Like there was a lot of stuff going on, you know, between Chicago and Detroit and Cleveland and Pittsburgh. And I mean, she is able to paint this picture of Pittsburgh with, you know, there's the prohibition,
The
you know,
speakeasies.
yeah, the speakeasies, and you know, you have the gangsters around, and you have these, I mean, the, you know, Andrew Carnegie and all these people who were just like millionaires at the time, now billionaires, you know,
Yeah.
and she's able to create these amazing, fun, quirky characters that make you feel like you're watching a classic movie that was, you know, filmed back then. It's great. So every time I read one of her books, I want to go take a tour to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. But it's above the
Can I
fold.
go visit a speakeasy? Can I go do this?
Yeah, exactly.
Fun and
That would be so fun. But it was Above the Fold and then The Red Canary, and both are really good. So I pulled a couple off my shelf. So this one goes back a little ways, and it's actually YA, but it's being made into a movie right now, or it was started being made into a movie right before COVID hit. And I think they're still in production. But There You'll Find Me by Jenny B. Jones, and it's set in Ireland. So that's really fun. And then London Restoration by Rachel McMillan, which is World War II London. So this one is contemporary, and then this one is the historical, and it's a love song to the Wren cathedrals. And so it's just, and it's got spies and married romance and coming back together after the separation of the war. And so it's just kind of a fun yet serious, somber look at kind of that immediately post-war era. And so, and it's
yeah,
London.
I've read the London Restoration, and it is, Rachel did an amazing job with that book. It's fabulous. And it makes you want to go back to London to see how much they've been able to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking at my husband, like, give me 15 words that are wrong. And then I'll come up with the right one. But what they've been able to restore of those churches and the entire city in general. And I haven't read Jenny's book, but I follow her on Facebook, which if you don't, you should. And she was telling us about, you know, the filming of it. So I'm excited to check that one out.
And this one is so fun because she's one of these people, and maybe it's not effortless, but it seems effortless in the way that she's funny. I mean, her emails are that way, talking to her on the phone is that way. And so it's just, and that sense of humor carries over into the books, and yet they've always got this really poignant heart to them too. One of my favorites of all time is Just Between You and Me, which is actually kind of a prequel to this one. but more of an adult. And it's, if you loved Brandon and Lethal Intent and his heart for foster care, then you would absolutely love Between You and Me by Jenny B. Jones, because it's that whole idea of the transition out of foster care, and that's what the heroine does, is help these girls who are aging out of the system. And so so important. So we've got like 1 or 2 minutes left. Have we missed any questions? I think we've had some great interaction. I love it, y'all. Thanks so much for being with us and all that. I'm just over here looking through the questions. I love all the comments. Is there anything else that you would like readers to know? What are you working on next? Because you've got your 3 Yellowstone books, and I keep holding these up because the covers are so pretty. I know you don't like that, but the covers are gorgeous, and you can still get this on the shelf.
Yes, I am working on, this one is set in a fictional town, but I've placed it right next to Breckenridge. When I lived in Denver, my favorite place to go in the mountains was Breckenridge. I loved the culture of that town. I loved the atmosphere, the weather, everything about it. It was gorgeous. And so I set a fictional town next to Breckenridge and made it a little quirkier. And again, it has that small town community feel. You know, I love the books that are set in small towns in the South and small beach towns. And I love that, but I'm a mountain person. And so I wanted to take that feel and put it in the mountains.
Yeah.
And so I have Aspen Crossroads is the first book in the Whisper Canyon series. And that comes out in, they keep moving the dates. Now it's August 24th.
Okay.
And that one, you know, I keep wanting to write these lighthearted romances, and then it just doesn't happen. This one is actually about survivors of sex trafficking, and they moved to this town to start a farm to table restaurant, which the town is not as receptive and welcoming as they could be. And then my heroine is a former counselor who comes in to try to work with them, and it has not been easy for her. And so she falls in love with the owner of the farm, who is kind of the colleague of these women who are the survivors. So I keep trying to write these lighthearted stories, and they don't happen. I do have moments of humor because I don't want it to be completely like heavy. But,
but that's what I love. They are these light romances, but they have a backbone that has depth and has real life in it. So, and this series is with Berkeley as well, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And yeah, so I love it. I love that because it gives you access to a completely different market, which is fantastic. That whole crossover. And I feel the same way, because like Lethal Intent was supposed to be this fun light book, and then it deals with all kinds of stuff, and yet there are these moments, because and so there are moments of the light, funny, but there's moments, and then there's moments of people keep telling me they sobbed. And I'm like, really? I'm sorry. But there's good stuff too.
Right.
So yeah, and I agree with you, Sonetta. I don't want just a romance. I want more. So it either needs to be historical, or have a mystery and suspense, or have that, what I call heart, that real life edge to it that keeps it. And Janine, do you have a Facebook page? That's one of the things Linda wants to know.
I do. It is Janine Rosche. And if you look up Janine Rosche author, you should be able to see it. It's a much more like, I think I'm smoldering in the picture and I have the sunlight coming in behind me. So you should be able to find it on there. And I have so much fun on my Facebook page. Yeah, I try to be serious on there, and I can't, because like my books, I try to make them lighthearted, and then I'm trying to be more sophisticated in real life, and it's like these two sides of me that just keep battling. So
yeah, no, and it's fun because you have all these great ideas and all these fun ideas, and I feel like I just get to ride on your coattails a lot, which is awesome, because you have all this creativity, and I'm like, hello world, it's me again. So
I also run the Most Storied Romance Facebook group, which Cara is in. She is one of our few romantic suspense authors. So we really need to get some more suspense suspenseful authors in there, but we are actually doing Cara's book, Lethal Intent, in our book club this month. So if you've been reading Cara's book or you've already finished it, you should come over and join that group so we can chat about it. So please look us up. Look up A Most Storied Romance, and it's the group, not the page. We don't really do much with the page. It's just a placeholder. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. And there's always author interaction and all kinds of fun. And she's got this amazing group of Becky Wade and, Pepper Basham and Rachel Halk. I mean, it's Tony Shiloh, so many different people, Rachel McDaniel. So it's just a fun, happening place with a group of probably 30 some authors. I think Jenny B. Jones is actually part of it.
Yes, she is.
So, and next week, Rachel Halk will be joining me, and then Sarah Sundin and Pepper Basham. We've got a whole lineup of people coming. So thanks so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed meeting my friend Janine. She's wonderful, and you should definitely check out her books because she writes if you need to travel, they're wonderful for that, but they've just got such depth to them, and they're just delightful stories. And you can always ask your libraries to pick them up, and that's actually a great gift to authors. And if you like them, be sure and let other people know as well. Thanks so much for joining us, Janine. It was great to talk with you.
Thanks.
And thank your husband for help.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much. And
thanks for tuning in.
yeah, bye-bye.